everyone, I'm Stu.
I'm Sarah, and welcome back to the 300 Bird Challenge.
We're trying to see 300 birds before the end of the year, and it all comes down to these next few days. We need 15 more bird species. We only have a few more days left in December. We're on quite a big trip, but we'll tell you more about that after this. Hi everyone, welcome back. We're very excited because we're on our way to Sax-Zim Bog. Now, Sarah is the big planner in this relationship, so I'll let her talk about some of the places we're going to.
So right now we are in Michigan, just outside of Kalamazoo, and we are heading towards the shores of Lake Michigan, which we are going to see from various vantage points from Michigan, from Indiana, and from Illinois. So we'll be spending some time in Chicago and that area, and then driving through Wisconsin to Duluth before eventually heading to Sax-Zim. After Sax-Zim, we'll be heading down to Minneapolis, and again trying to hit some spots on the way if we haven't hit our target yet.
We're basically going to be looking at eBird alerts and Facebook groups and all that kind of thing to try to find some of the birds that we still need for the year to try to get us to that 300 mark. Anyway, for the time being, as Sarah mentioned, we're in Michigan. What's the specific name of the place we're at the moment, Sarah?
We are at Wolf Lake Fish Hatchery.
Here we have seen reports of a Wilson snipe, although looking behind us it's pretty snowy conditions. The weather has really changed over the last few days. We'll see if we can find it, but it may have departed at this point. American pipit, and I think there was also a report of a golden eagle. That would be a lifer for us. I assume that must have been a flyover. We're going to take a look around anyway. Stick with us, let's take a look. We followed a snow-cleared pathway down towards some scattered ponds. Located west of Kalamazoo, the hatchery features ponds of various sizes. Some of the paths require snowshoes at this time of the year, but we were able to navigate much of it with normal footwear. Near the visitors centre, American tree sparrows gathered near feeders, scavenging for fallen seed. Much of this winter wonderland was a showcase of waterfowl. Nothing too extraordinary. Here's some gadwall. A handful of common goldeneye. Further out, iridescent buffleheads caught the light in this shot. The other, smaller lakes had mostly frozen over, so we weren't convinced that a snipe would still be here. But then, out of nowhere, a killdeer flew by. It came to rest on a snowbank further down the trail. Well, if it's possible for a killdeer to scrape a living in these conditions, maybe a snipe could too. The snow had been relentless on our drive into southwestern Ontario the previous evening. And now, as we circled the lakes, snow-laden plants formed natural forts, potential shelter for hidden birds. Still, with no sign of the snipe, we cut our losses. Okay guys, unfortunately no snipe, no American pipit, two birds that have given us a fair bit of trouble this year. We haven't been able to find them. As mentioned, it would have to be a hardy snipe, but we did see that killdeer, and I didn't get it on camera, but we did also see a belted kingfisher as well, so those guys are doing okay-ish, I guess, with the remaining open water. Anyway, time for us to move on closer towards Chicago. We'll stop off on the way there, so stay tuned. Let's see where we end up next. Back onto the I-94 that would take us west to Lake Michigan before veering south. We exited towards the St. Joseph area. And this residential cobbled road led us to the lake. Okay guys, we're filming in the car for this bit because it's looking pretty bleak and windy outside. Sarah, where have we come?
Tiscornia Park in Benton Harbor.
We have a lookout over Lake Michigan over there. Red-throated loons have been reported, so we're going to take a look. but we won't be able to talk because, as I mentioned, pretty windy. Snowy owl has also been reported in this area, although I don't see any flapping about. We're going to take a look outside the car. Stay tuned. I wasn't exaggerating. It was bitterly cold. We carefully walked to the end of the pier. Quite treacherous, but we got there and looked out over the water. Buffeted by wind, I tried to film. The lake teemed with mergansers. A few gulls as well, but as best as we could tell, ring-billed and a few herring. The biting conditions sent us back to the car. Well, that was appalling. I think we deserve a new bird after that, but unfortunately we didn't get one. Maybe the next stop. Stay tuned. We move ever closer to Chicago. Back onto our favourite I-94, which skirts around the bottom of Lake Michigan, briefly into Indiana, and then into Illinois. We pushed hard towards Chicago to find an interesting bird with the day's remaining light. Okay guys, we are in Chicago's south side. It's a bit of a kind of sketchy area, but we've come to find a cheeky bird before we have to go to our hotel. Let's see if we can find it. If we do, you'll know what it is. Stay tuned a sec. The area was pretty run down, so we didn't linger, but we heard the sound of parakeets way before we saw them. Underneath this I-90 overpass, a colony of monk parakeets have made their home. They can also be found in several parks, and there are thought to be around 1,000 of them in Chicago, and more of these birds in other cities around the world. They're native to South America, but likely spread as part of the pet trade. The monk parakeet is considered countable, so this goes down as a new bird and a lifer. Okay, day one, bird number one. Bit of a sketchy area, so we're filming back in the car again. But monk parakeet is a bit of a cheeky one maybe, but it counts. ABA says so, and that's who we go by with our rules. It is also countable on the eBird website too though, so it's a bird that's become naturalised in this area of Chicago, and I think there's a couple of other colonies dotted around the city too. That does us for today for you guys, but we're going to go for a quick break while Sarah and I check into our hotel for the night. But we'll be hanging around Chicago tomorrow and doing a bit of birding and a bit of touristy stuff. So back soon. Bye for now. That evening, we hit Giordano's, my first ever Chicago-style deep dish pizza, so of course it had to be done. A dish so deep, it's basically pizza pie. It went down pretty well though. Let's move on to the following morning's birding. Good morning everyone, and welcome back. We're still in Chicago. Sarah, where are we this morning?
We are at Montrose Point Bird Sanctuary.
We don't have any particular targets for a change. This is just a pretty premium spot in the Chicago area, so we've come to check it out. Of course, it's not spring or summer, so it's not going to be crawling with birds, but let's see if we can find something special this morning. On Chicago's lakeshore, Montrose Point Bird Sanctuary offers varied habitats, woods, dunes, and, of course, the lake itself. We considered visiting the harbour beacon near the beach, but it was completely frozen over, so we stuck to the woods. Chickadees and goldfinch were reasonably plentiful. And on the ground, this cardinal scratched around for food. Okay guys, we just bumped into a nice guy called Stephen, who used to live in Toronto, as well as a few other places, including near where I grew up, in Birmingham. Anyway, he pointed out a couple of nice, interesting birds for us. First of all, this guy, his name is Junior, because he's still quite young. Red-tailed hawk. He allowed us to get some pretty good shots. He had some prey that he was concentrating on, although look at that steely gaze into the distance. He also let us know that he saw a great horned owl, and we saw it in this tree to begin with, quite close up. but it flew away while we were looking at it, and Sarah was able to track it down a little bit later, so we caught up with it again and got some more nice looks. Great horned owl, pretty cool bird. We checked likely trees for a Sawet Owl, but no luck with that. With another birding lead to check, we decided to move on. Okay guys, pretty decent stop. We're going to move on though. There's been reports of snowy owls, so we're going to try and track those down. Wish us luck. We'll see how it goes. Driving south on Lakeshore Drive, the infamous Willis Tower loomed on the skyline. Okay Sarah, where have we come to next?
Rainbow Beach.
We're hoping that there might be a snowy owl. Just over this way there's some rocks. These lakeshore snowy owls can sometimes be found perched on rocks like that, so we're going to take a quick look. We walked through these dune grasses, aiming for the rocky lake walls. We scanned the rocks and the inlet. Quite a bit of waterfowl, but too far away to ID it reliably. Mostly scaup and mergansers, we think, but no owls on the rocks. Waterfowl flushed repeatedly, hundreds at a time. We gave up on the snowy owls, but on the light poles to the left in this shot, a pretty cool bird, peregrine falcon. We'll take it as a consolation prize. Well, no snowy owl at this location, but we've seen reports a little bit further down the lake, so that's going to be our next stop. If you've been watching the channel through the year, you'll know that snowy owl has been a bit troublesome for us. We've gone to a few good locations and not been able to find them, especially in the previous winter season, but this winter season is looking a bit more promising for them, so fingers crossed we will have a few opportunities to try to find it before the challenge is over. So yeah, a little bit of waterfowl out on the lake here, but very distant. We don't think there was anything too extraordinary, but to be honest, we're early into December and we've already got red-breasted merganser fatigue because there's so many of those around. Anyway, next stop, further down the lake. Stay tuned, back in a sec. Another brief stop for another snowy attempt. Some otherwise unremarkable sparrows in some of the brush, American tree, and this song sparrow. We scanned the rocks again for snowy owls, but again without success. Pretty awesome views of this kestrel though. It had just caught a smaller bird which you can see in its talons, and it gave an excited cry just before I started filming. Perched in this tree for a while, it bobbed its head. As usual, on the water, just more mergansers. Okay guys, after a warming coffee and a look out over another break wall, we didn't manage to find snowy owl, but that's okay. We've still got opportunities, maybe back in Toronto if we don't have one before then, but Duluth is also looking good for snowy owls, and that's part of our itinerary. Speaking of itineraries, coming up next, we're going to do the tourist thing in Chicago, so our birding is over for the day, but we'll definitely be doing some more later in this video. Stay tuned, we'll be back in a bit, show you some of Chicago, then we'll go for a quick break. We'll be back with more birding after the break. Welcome back as we begin leaving Chicago. A quick stop at Lake Glenview, still in Illinois. There had been reports of a snow goose, which we still need for the challenge, but we only saw mallards and Canada geese. After searching the lake, much of which was frozen, we gave up on the golden goose. Good morning everyone, a bust on that snow goose as mentioned, but we're on a bit of an unusual mission in northern Illinois. Sarah, what strange bird are we looking for?
We are looking for European goldfinch.
Yeah, perhaps escaped pets from years ago. There's an established colony of European goldfinch. We're going to kind of track it down on this rough stretch of road, see if we can find them. We slowly rode up and down this short stretch of road. There were a pair of red-tailed hawks, one of which was quite agitated. Now, this was cool to see, but scary for other birds who might now be hunkering down. But we scanned the vegetation because I'd seen goldfinches in similar habitat back in the UK. Thankfully, and despite the hawks, some birds still appeared, like this white-crowned sparrow. And these red-winged blackbirds are still hanging around too. We drove the road twice, and then one more desperate try. Okay, almost gave up on that. I decided to step out of the car, and then I saw and heard them land in a nearby tree. Got a few distant shots, but you can tell that it's European goldfinch. Pretty unusual one, that one. You know what the downside is? It doesn't count towards our bird challenge. It's not on the ABA list, although it does show up in certain areas, depending on the county, I think, on eBird. So, cool and interesting bird, but not one that's going to help us, but we decided to take the detour just because it's so interesting. An oddity, this one. Parrots, macaws, parakeets, they often establish themselves in new places as escaped pets, and that's probably also the case with these European goldfinch too. I like this bird. I saw a lot of them last year when we visited the UK, and my brother bought me this pin badge which I wear on one of my coats. Sarah, next stop?
Independence Grove Forest Preserve.
Gonna drive there now, stay tuned, back in a sec. Next stop, another look for a Wilson's snipe. By now, we are in the north of Illinois, approaching the Wisconsin border, making this stop off at Independence Grove Forest Preserve outside of Libertyville. Someone reported the snipe upstream of this bridge, so we scanned the banks of the river. From photos, we could tell roughly where the snipe had been seen, but a pair of mallards was about as exciting as it got. Despite searching for a while, we couldn't find it. But in the parking lot, it was cool to see this yellow-rumped warbler. A little unusual in December, but not unheard of. Okay guys, we came to Independence Grove Forest Preserve because there were reports of a Wilson's snipe, and I know we've tried that already in this video, but this one was looking a bit more promising. It's a bit warmer here compared to some of the other places we've been. The water is unfrozen where it moves, so we've been scanning the banks of this river in hopes of seeing it, but extremely well camouflaged if it is there. The muddy banks kind of match the plumage of the bird, so we haven't been able to find it. We looked fairly extensively, but we're on kind of a limited schedule, so I think we have to call this one off and continue our journey north towards Duluth, so stay tuned. We're going to hit the road again. Back on the road again, yet the I-94. We decided to take a chance on our next stop. Back in a minute. Welcome back. Passing through Milwaukee, we heard word of a western meadowlark, normally found from the west coast to about as far as the prairies, but it does occasionally creep a little further east, like this one. Not a lifer, but to find it, it would be a bonus unexpected bird for the 300 bird challenge, if we can find it. Okay Sarah, where has this latest diversion brought us?
Lakeshore State Park in Milwaukee.
It's been a painful day of birding. We've not seen any new birds. In fact, in this video so far, just one new bird. We come here because there's been reports of a western meadowlark. We haven't seen it so far, but some other birders say they saw it earlier this morning, so we'll persevere for now. Milwaukee, Wisconsin is located on the western shore of Lake Michigan, and we were in Lakeshore State Park, a 22-acre urban park and beach with paved trails and, of most interest to us, this restored prairie habitat preferred by meadowlarks. We circled around an oval area of grassland that birds would occasionally pop up from. American tree sparrow here. And American tree sparrow here. And you get the idea. Meanwhile, down by the rocks, and don't worry, the prairie is just behind us, we're still looking there too, we saw mallards, scaup, and redhead ducks. And we can't go anywhere without more mergansers. We kept circling around the prairie along with 3 other birders looking for the meadowlark. When one of them saw it, it briefly flew and hid again. It was giving us all a ton of trouble because it would rarely fly. It would hop, walk and waddle low down in the grass, rarely popping its head up but moving long distances. Okay guys, here's the thing, we've been here for a good half an hour or more, no sign of it. There are other photographers here also looking for it. It's kind of a question of how long do we spend here? We don't have a great deal of time. At this point it's still 5 hours to Duluth, so by the time we get there it's going to be pushing on for darkness. So I think Duluth is off the menu until tomorrow and we have to rearrange our plans already. But how much longer do we look for this meadowlark? Or do we go somewhere else and try for something different? That's kind of where we are right now. It was so frustrating because it's such a small area and definitely here, but we had very limited time. Thankfully, we got lucky. Limited views, but we found it. Got it. Okay, really bad shot, but meadowlark on the ground. It seems to be hiding in the grass and not really taking flight so much as travelling across the ground at quite a lot of distance over time. Sarah got eyes on it. I heard a rustling sound, I heard Sarah shout attention towards it. We got a really bad shot of it, but western meadowlark, thank goodness for that, because this video is starting to look a bit kind of depressing with not finding any birds. It's still a really tough ask to get to 300 I think, but we'll see how it goes. We need a bit of luck. We're going to carry on, find somewhere else to stay. I think maybe one more stop for the day. Stay tuned. Back on the road once more, we're going to try to find a real nemesis bird of ours. Stay tuned for some owl goodness. Okay guys, we're at the University of Wisconsin on the Madison campus, not too far from the city of Madison. Sarah, what are we here for?
We're here hoping to see a Sawet Owl, which was spotted yesterday. There's also been some other species in the last few days, but that would be the highlight.
Sawet Owl has been a pain in the butt for us. We were looking for one a couple of weeks ago. We got a lead, but we couldn't find it, so we had to give up on that one. Going to take a look around some of these trees. As I mentioned before, they like coniferous trees a lot of the time, and they kind of perch at eye level, close to the trunk usually, so let's see if we can find one. We began to carefully search through the trees. Not gonna lie, we are a little bit worried. We've only seen 2 new birds. We're 3 days in. We needed 15 at the beginning, we found 2, we still need 13 birds. We're starting to worry about whether we're going to make it at this point. Well, all we can do is try, but we've come quite far, and meadowlark aside, to be honest, we've found a few less birds than I would have liked by this stage. Sarah and I split up to cover more ground, but ironically, she found something in the first tree that I had checked when we first came in. So one of the first trees I looked at is this one here, and one of the signs to look for is whitewash on the trunk. Let me just turn the camera around. And I'm just making sure that it is whitewash and not dried up tree sap. A good way to tell is when it gets onto the branches as well. Here's the gorgeous little thing, Northern Sawet, new bird. And then after the fact, Sarah just noticed that there's an owl pellet here on the branch as well. These regurgitated pellets contain undigested food remains, and they're a good indication of a nearby owl, although a few other bird species also produce them. Sawets sleep during the day, so we filmed a couple of clips before leaving it in peace. Normally I don't release locations of vulnerable species in these videos, but this individual is very widely reported already. Finally, Northern Sawet Owl. Great bird to see, another new one for the year. Step closer, 12 more birds. What do you think, Sarah? Sawet Owl?
Loved seeing that. We did see them last year, but this was nice to be sort of an independent find as opposed to some help from being near a banding. So yeah, excited that we got that one.
Yeah, a little bit kind of funny last year. We decided to count Sawet Owl after it had been banded and then released. Is it wild? We counted it. But this time, yeah, Sarah found it in a tree. No banding station in sight. We're running out of time. We don't want to get to Duluth too late, lose all the light. So that's our next stop, our hotel in Duluth. Back in a bit. Sorry guys, I don't think we were excited enough. Yeah, Sawet Owl! Duluth next. Stay tuned. The sun began setting as we took a long 5-hour drive up the I-90 and our old favourite, the I-94. After a lot of driving, the time seemed to move so slowly. I wish I could have filmed it, but it was dark and I was driving, but between Camp Douglas and Madison, there were hundreds of sandhill cranes that flew across the sunset-stained sky, and hundreds more in the nearby fields. Amazing view. Eventually, we arrived in the city of Superior, Wisconsin, across the Minnesota border from Duluth. Oh, good morning everyone. A little bit colder as we've come 4 or 5 hours further north of where we were yesterday. Sarah, what's our first stop this morning?
We are at Superior Entry on the Wisconsin side.
Reports of snowy owls perching on some of the breakwalls. We have taken a quick look without much joy, but there are a ton of bald eagles here, so let's take a look at those. Before we do that, a quick map catch-up. As mentioned, we're in Superior, Wisconsin, and we've come to Wisconsin Point on Lake Superior. These two peninsulas facing each other are either side of Minnesota and the Wisconsin border. Later, we'll head through Duluth and finally arrive at Sax-Zim Bog. But first, this bald eagle was overlooking the road in as we arrived. Quite a few more of them out on the ice of Allouez Bay too. We also took a look out over Lake Superior, paying particular attention to the distant rocky breakwalls for, you guessed it, snowy owls. We also checked any nearby posts or buildings. More bald eagles, so we decided to watch them for a while. A variety of ages, mature and some juveniles, which look similar to young golden eagles. This juvenile, without the white head and tail, interested us the most, but subsequent examination tells me it's another bald eagle, not the lifer golden eagle we hoped for. Okay guys, as mentioned, bald eagles are plenty, but no snowy owl. We did get a couple of pictures of juvenile bald eagles. We are going to have to check those out later tonight when I have a larger screen to take a look, just to make sure there's not a golden eagle there, but if there was, we'd have told you about it. In the moment, we're not too sure. But one thing we are sure about now is flashback. Remember those European goldfinches we saw a little earlier in this video? We did some digging on the ABA website, and although it's not on their list, it has been recently added, so there is an entry on their website about how European goldfinch is now countable. Ding! New bird for the year. Excellent news. Helps us get a little bit closer. What do we need, Sarah? 11 more now?
Yeah.
If we didn't get the golden eagle. Okay, stay tuned guys, we're going to move on to a new stop. We drove back down the peninsula, but we stopped when we saw a huge flock of gulls. We've just pulled over momentarily because there's a ton of gulls out on the ice here. As far as we can see, it's American herring gulls and ring-billed gulls. We don't see anything else, but gulls aren't our strong point. Oh, there's a bald eagle coming in, juvenile. That bald eagle has startled all the gulls into flight. The gulls remained agitated for a while, but with the number of eagles out here, they must be used to it. As I've said, I'm not great with gulls, so If anyone sees anything here besides herring or ring-billed, please let us know. Time to cross into Duluth and the state of Minnesota. Onwards, after 5 days, the final stretch to Sax-Zim Bog. As we climbed in elevation past Duluth and continued north, the snow began to get heavier until our final, much anticipated arrival. Okay guys, we finally made it, Sax-Zim Bog, but I'm going to tease you, that's the end of this part of the video. Stay tuned to the channel, the Sax-Zim Bog video will be coming as soon as I can edit all this together. Thanks for watching this video, please like, please comment, most of all, if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button followed by the bell icon. We'll be back soon, thanks for watching, bye for now.
Bye.